Okay, good evening. I would like to welcome you all to this evening's licensing committee. It's the first physical committee meeting taking place at the town hall following the end of the emergency arrangements and the virtual meeting setup. All committee members are requested to attend in person. Any member of the council can attend and make a request to the chair to speak or ask a question under normal rules. Members who wish to participate in a non-decision making capacity are able to do so remotely. All future committee meetings are scheduled to be convened at the Town Hall campus, though at present time only members of the committee are physically attending. This meeting is being live streamed for public viewing and a record of the decisions taken will be published after the meeting. I would like to remind members who are physically present and also those who may be joining remotely of the following protocols. Please only speak when invited to do so by the chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communication via the chair. For those joining remotely, please ensure that your mics are muted when you are not speaking. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please use the chat function in Google Meet to alert the meeting or dial in on the phone number using the PIN provided within the invite. If you're referring to a specific page or picture in a report, please refer to the page number. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the committee or to make comments. Any persistent disruptive behaviour will result in removal from the meeting. At this point, I will hand over to the chair for the remainder of the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, welcome colleagues. Councillor Conway, can you find a seat okay? I think you're probably into the next row next to Gilbert. Next, as it were, across the aisle from Gilbert. Councillor Smith. It doesn't matter where, but that's, I can see you there. Fab. Okay, welcome colleagues and officers. Thank you for coming out in such large numbers for this first in-person meeting. Hopefully it'll all go well. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
I've received notification that Councillor Gordon is joining the meeting remotely. And that's all the information that I have at this time.
Councillor Moella's apologies we've had, I think, completely apologies.
Complete apologies from Councillor Moella.
And Councillor Odds said he wouldn't be attending, so he either gave his apologies or is attending remotely, but I think, I saw an email, I'm pretty sure. Maybe, yeah, it may have been addressed to somebody else about another thing, but it was about licensing. Okay. Okay. Any other apologies from anybody? No. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any interest they wish to declare?
No. None.
None. Excellent, thank you. Now we go on to item 3, minutes of the previous meetings. Can we agree the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on the 27th of April?
Agreed.
Thank you. Can we agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of March as contained within the supplementary agenda pack? That's the last meeting of the licensing committee.
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, and there's no issues with those. Can we then, members of licensing subcommittee B, please agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of April, again contained within the supplementary agenda pack? I don't know who you've got.
Councillor Gordon. We don't have them because
Councillor Moella and Councillor Gordon. Okay.
Councillor Gordon, Moella and Odds.
Who are not here. And we can't even get Margaret to.
Okay.
Councillor Gordon, can she agree the minutes remotely? We don't know. Probably not, but there's an interesting one.
We can leave it to another meeting, it's fine.
Yeah.
Chair, I might. I think Councillor Gordon's got no objections to any of the things in the minutes. We find committee to agree them as a corporate body.
That's the point.
Should we ask?
If we could check with Councillor Gordon that she'll allow us to agree the minutes.
She's indicated that she is happy to agree with them.
Fantastic. So we're happy to agree those minutes then to get that done. Thank you very much, colleagues, and thank you, Councillor Gordon.
I have to use your microphone.
I'm so sorry. Thank you for drawing your, those microphones aren't working. We're using these green boxes and I'm assured that it's very effective, but obviously I'm gabbling a bit. And is that better, Sharon? I've just raised my voice in my head. If I put my head down, you'll probably lose me, but I'll try. Councillor David.
We have spare hard copies of the agenda.
It wasn't on.
Downstairs at the reception.
They've run out.
There were some hard copies for circulation which were left downstairs at the reception. I'm not sure if they've all been taken at this point.
Okay.
They've all been taken. They've all gone. Gilbert's copy was the last copy.
You've got a computer with you, don't have you?
Councillor Rathbone.
Yeah, Chair, yeah, because I've got the copy that was lying, I picked up a copy on Saturday. The minutes that you just referred to aren't here.
No, there was a supplementary, because there were two sets of minutes that needed to be agreed at this meeting. So there was a supplementary agenda, including those that were sent out on Friday, actually, but it wouldn't have.
And that was only circulated electronically.
Okay. Probably need to say that in future for people like myself, because I always have printed copies. So I wouldn't know that, so then I can make up my own mind how I deal with that. Or for future reference, yeah.
Okay, we've had quite a lot of, I thought you'd responded to the emails, actually, Councillor Rathbone. Natalie emailed, and I think you were one of the people that responded.
What I didn't understand, and it didn't say, there are no printed copies of.
Oh, okay. Apologies for that then. I'm sorry about that.
And also, within these minutes, it actually says, unless I've lost it, it says establishment and composition of the licensing subcommittee resolved to approve, as set out in Appendix 1. I couldn't find that in this agenda, so I've missed it. I could have missed it.
Are you referring to?
Item 5, it says to approve the establishment membership of 5 subcommittees.
So this is, sorry, this is the minutes, the extraordinary general meeting, the 27th.
But maybe it is. So the Appendix 1 is the one that's actually in the agenda of the council AGM.
Yes, yes.
I think it should have said that, because I spent a lot of time trying to look, not realising.
Oh, okay. Okay. I think that was,
Usually when you refer to an appendix in any kind of agenda, it's the appendix that is with that agenda. This is an appendix from another meeting.
it's minutes from another meeting, and actually I think it's quite unfortunately the case that often minutes don't have the original, but never mind. I take your point. Are you happy that you understand now what it refers to?
Phrase point. Sorry, I have to do this, but it's that obviously I was left off for some strange reason from immediate circulation, even though my name was on the list for a licensing committee on the agenda.
Right.
But as a result of that, because that's what I was looking for, to understand where am I going to be on the 5 subcommittees of A to E if I wasn't actually listed to start with. I only found out last week that I wasn't listed. So I just wondered if council guidance be given as regards that, or that taken on board.
Yes, and I'll have a conversation with you outside of this meeting, and we'll discuss that.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So a connected point is that on the website, the papers for the licensing committee extraordinary meeting on 27th of April appear not to be accessible unless we request access. Just clicking on the name. All the other, their logs are accessible, but not for that.
Right, okay, I'll look into that and rectify that. Thank you.
Okay. Apologies
Chair,
for.
can I just come in? Sorry, you weren't looking up to see my hands up. Just to find out from Natalie, moving forward, since the meeting now, apart from the subcommittee, will be remote meetings. These meetings will be in person. It will be useful for committee members like what Ian picked up and Kofo, or Councillor David, Councillor Radford, in what is the regime with the papers? Are they going to receive hard copies as before COVID-19 restriction, or people should rely on using the remote or a soft copy you send to them, I think it's a bit everywhere, a little chaotic to have this, to have 2 additional minutes sent after that. So I don't know what is going to happen. And I do appreciate that because this is the first meeting. That's why that is.
Yeah, I think going forward, we are trying to encourage members as much as possible to access papers electronically online. We are very much pushing for that. However, I do realise that some members have expressed wishes for hard copy agenda. Where that wish has been expressed to governance services, we will try our best to accommodate that as much as possible. There are on each committee, there is usually a set amount of hard copies that's left at town hall reception, which can be collected by members on a first come, first served basis. And when I do send the agenda out electronically, I do usually advise that members can access hard copies via the town hall, but they should call ahead before collecting.
If I could add to that point, Chair, we understand some members would prefer paper copies and we will try and accommodate that where possible. I think Natalie's point about giving us advance notices, it would be appreciated, bearing in mind, obviously, we're working remotely for the majority of the time. We can actually come in for the print unit.
I can't hear that, I'm afraid. I don't know what you're saying.
I said, just to add to Natalie's point, we would still be expressing a preference for people to access digital copies where possible. If people have a preference for paper copies, we can obviously accommodate that. But as Natalie said, we would need advance notice because we're currently working remotely. As you all understand, the print unit itself isn't fully staffed and always able to fully sort of deal with requests on the day of the meeting itself. So just a reminder to members if they can give us that advance notice.
Have you got people already who are, do you know?
Can I just respond saying that I am aware of 3 members of this committee who have specifically requested hard copies, and those 3 members should have received hard copies, and that printed copies that were sent out to them. I've actually got the email up here where I sent it to print. So I'm aware of 3 members who have requested hard copies going forward.
Does that include me or am I fourth?
That doesn't include you, you would be the 4th.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor David.
Was I included? Because I did.
You were included in that list because you have spoken to me separately.
And I think,
I haven't received it, so it's probably starting.
so I think I am on that list, am I not? Because I certainly normally ask for paper copies of all committee reports, and I have received my report for licensing E through the post, but I didn't receive the papers for this meeting through the post.
Right, okay. I think maybe we can have a more in-depth discussion about this after the meeting, and I can take a list of names and we can delve into that a bit deeper after the committee.
Yeah, okay, agreed. Councillor Smith?
Yes,
Just a
thank
quick clarification on the digital copy of it. I'm currently looking at the digital copy here, but it consists of several PDF files. Is that how it can be? And each PDF file seems to relate to a document that's already there. So if I look at PDF 1 and PDF 2, they're the same, exactly the same.
Councillor Smith, they're not. The second one is the supplementary agenda. Natalie had to do a supplementary agenda to introduce the 2 extra sets of minutes.
Okay.
Okay? So other than that, they are, as always, electronically in order. Okay? Right, and any more on this we'll deal with afterwards through communicating with Natalie at the end of this meeting or thereafter. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We'll go on to item 4 and the late night levy update report. And then we'll put all our devices onto silent. It's beginning to feel like handful parish council. Okay. All right. Samantha Mathis, lovely. Can we hand over to you to hear about the late night levy? Thank you.
I've put the presentation up as well into the virtual meeting.
Okay, so this is the year 4 quarterly, the second quarterly update. I wanted to start by giving just an overview of the financial situation. So receipts continue to be severely impacted by the pandemic and the cyber attack. We have cut our expenditure accordingly to take into consideration these losses. We'll continue to monitor these income levels closely, and we expect to have notices go out to businesses by September to start paying into the levy once again. Therefore, we should see an increased revenue from September onwards. Thank you. So just to give you an idea, pre-pandemic, between the months of September and December in 2019, our income was about 230K. So this is just to give you an idea of the income that will be coming in later in the year. Although that will be impacted by the effect the pandemic has had on businesses. So that's the only part of it we aren't able to know, but we are optimistic that receipts will be going up. Total receipts this year to date amounted to 32,403. And there was that balance carried over from previous years, which is seeing us through the current year of 260,073. So here you can see just the overview of our expenditure to date. I've put the Q1 spend there, which we reported at the last committee. In Q2, we have no police spend because we did not, we were locked down, so we didn't have any police out there. We did spend on the launch and the testing of the new Hackney Knights portal and the creation of the accreditation portion of the site, and that amounted to 5.5K approximately. And we have print and design costs for the portal launch and some training and toolkits that we prepared for the NTE that amounts to 3,778. So as you can see, our expenditure is way down compared to previous years. If we take into the receipts and the balance carried over and we subtract that expenditure, we're looking at a balance of about 123K at the present time. So the next bit I would like to update you on is the late night levy consultation. So the late night levy consultation was launched last week and will last for 8 weeks. Under the late night levy regulations 2012, the reduction in fees can only be agreed in a limited set of circumstances, must be approved by the relevant licensing authority. And we have a statutory duty to perform a consultation before implementing this reduction. It's our proposal that the late night levy fee payers who gain the new Hackney Knights accreditation will be able to benefit from a 30% reduction in fees in recognition of the positive contribution their activities will have on the prevention of crime, disorder, and social impact on the borough. We are asking licensees, residents, and workers to participate in the consultation. And we've decided to incorporate questions on the accreditation scheme and allow businesses a chance to feed into it before we finalize the criteria. We will be sending out all late night levy licensees a letter to participate, as well as offer them the opportunity to sign up to the portal if they haven't already. And I just wanted to show committee the questions that we are asking as part of this consultation. So the first one being, do you support a 30% reduction to the annual late night levy fee for licensees who gain the accreditation? Would an accreditation as set out in the document have a positive or negative impact on your business? Can you think of any other themes we could include in the accreditation scheme? And finally, in addition to extra policing, how can the council use funds collected through the late night levy to support community safety in the nighttime economy? In regards to the Hackney Knights portal, which we had launched in Q2, I'm happy to say that 125 licensees have signed up so far and are accessing the portal. It's also the access point for all the free training that we are delivering, and we have trained over 100 people to date in our live sessions just in the past month and a half. And so we expect to continue to roll out regular offering of training programs. There will always be constant new sessions added and new interactive courses as well. I am undertaking engagement visits to help boost these numbers, including work with off licenses to commence this summer. The accreditation section is now being added to the portal, and licensees will be able to preview suggested criteria once we finalize that. We will have a full report I'm going to be presenting in September to the committee. And that will be on usage, on numbers, etc., who's logged on, the signups we get for the trainings, and all that.
Also, the accreditation scheme criteria will be finalized once the consultation period is over, and that will be in time for us to present to the next licensing committee as well. That will then go to full council in October. Just to give you a bit of an overview on the training that we're offering at the moment. So we have two types of training. We have the e-learning trainings, which are available to be completed at their own leisure. It's an interactive online training. And those, we have 4 at the moment, well, 3 and 1 in development. So the Drink Aware training is the main one that we are pushing to the licensees. That e-learning has been designed for staff working inside venues, including bar staff, glass collectors, first aiders, anyone else whose role involves direct contact with customers throughout the night. And it equips staff with the ability to identify alcohol-related vulnerability and take steps to help prevent customers coming to harm. Our public health team is also putting together a substance misuse training that is specifically aimed at NTE. This will, it will help frontline staff to teach them the harms and effects of illegal substances, how to deal with individuals who may be struggling with addiction, etc. That should be launched in the next 2 weeks, so I will keep you posted on that. We have the counterterrorism training that is available at all times. It aims to teach staff on the risk how to spot potentially dangerous behavior. That was the Met Police training that we've made available on the portal. And to serve or not to serve, that's just a short refresher e-learning. It's great for new staff or individuals who are new to the bar trade and trains them on their responsibilities in regards to serving minors and individuals who are disorderly or drunk. And then we have our second type of training, which is the live online trainings. These are sessions that are conducted remotely. So these are just some examples of some of the trainings we have. Barnardo's charity is doing a night watch child exploitation training tomorrow, actually. We have a women's safety training, and that's around sexual harassment and assault. This will be our second session we do. And it's participants here from 2 experienced sexual violence prevention trainers from our, and take part in activities with a group of other nightlife workers, managers, supervisors, and others involved in Hackney's nightlife. So it's more of a workshop training, etc., around women's safety. And we have a disability awareness and disability justice training delivered by Quiplash at the end of June, and it covers the foundations of disability justice and accessibility. It essentially will help them kind of create, spaces that are accessible to all. And just finally, police and enforcement. Obviously, with the reopening of the NCE, there'll be a need for regular police and enforcement presence. Our current quarterly agreement with the police ends on June 30th. And the next agreement we are negotiating at the moment will actually be to cover a larger period than just a quarter. So we will be contracting them for July to October. And this is just to allow for income in September and October to be received. And that finalizes my presentation, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samantha. Okay, questions? Councillor Snell.
Are we taking share the minutes of the 11th meeting as well, alongside the report? Yes?
Yes.
I just wanted to say, I bring this up at lots of committees. I hate abbreviations. If I on this committee don't understand what some of this means, then the public isn't going to understand it. Either you've got to put a glossary. Shoreditch is CEBCU's largest crime generator. I haven't got a clue what that means. And, if we're going to report to this meeting, we're reporting to the public, and it must be clear. I'll just make that point, because otherwise you'll hear me say it time in and time out. I saw you outside, and I mentioned a couple of things that came up at the last Dalston Pub Watch. There's a concern that the late night levy can so dominate, certainly that pub watch, that's the only one I know, that it squeezes out that the meetings are less relevant to the licensed trade that isn't paying the levy. So this is such a fantastic suite of training provided. I want everyone to get it. And so I just wondered if you've got any plans at the moment, or whether that's a wider thing for the licensing department to get this out, to get this known across the pub trade and licensed trade, so other people use it even if they're not paying the late night levy. And then the other thing, and I think you were probably at the meeting, Samantha, the concern that people are now very sensitised to the return of normal late night activity. I know some of the licensed premises around me work really hard to get the neighbours on board and giving direct numbers to manage it. But I know some operators think that some of the people they worry about the people. They are so obsessed with the noise that they see out on the street and that. They would like to be able to have a route to refer those people for safeguarding. You know, they want to show duty of care for their neighbours above and beyond what they think is reasonable to minimise the nuisance. So have we any thoughts in that respect? Could we do a training module in how to identify neighbours who need safeguarding and how they should be referred on?
Sure. So in regards to your first point, in regards to the abbreviations, that's noted. I will make sure there are none in the future minutes. In regards to the training and the portal being offered to non-late night levy licensees, that was always the intention. We always wanted the portal to be accessible by every licensed premises and for the trainings as well. This is something that we have been doing outreach about in our engagement work, but it is something that we recognize as something we're going to need to address because it, as you've pointed out, yes, you know, late night levy kind of dominates the conversations of these things. So there is some work to be done there. In regards to noise, I don't know if David, if you, in regards to the noise point.
If we spot someone who's in obvious distress, then we are encouraged as councils to report that to adult safeguarding services. Is there a similar faculty for members of the public, people who come into people, and that's a specific instance, there are wider instances, who they feel are in distress and need to be looked after? I mean, it could even be a customer, in fact, that is vulnerable and they feel is being preyed upon.
Yeah, I'll take it. I think so. I mean, there is some discussions with environmental protection on what kind of work that can be, like what kind of trainings or what kind of information can be accessed via the portal. Like it is, there is some work going on there, but it's really early stages. So I can't really comment further on it unless, David, you have anything.
So the question is in relation to if a member of the public was concerned about the welfare of another member of the public.
How could they raise that with our adult or child safeguarding services here?
I think child safeguarding they can
contact. It just needs to be clarified. It needs to be...
We'd have to come back to you on that.
I mean, we do have a welfare pack we're working on to include into the portal, which is going to feed into the accreditation scheme. So it's something they have to have on site, which signposts to existing kind of, you know, different safeguarding kind of support services, if you will. But it's still in development, so I could probably give a further update at the next meeting in regards to.
I mean, I don't think I'm even sure where it goes to. I think if I do a members' inquiry, I say member service, attention, adult or child safeguarding. And we've all been on training courses, I think, to encourage us to do that. So something similar, I'm just saying if we can access those services, then we should tell other people how to access them.
Yeah. Okay, problem with that. Yeah, I'm going to have to look into that. Thanks.
Thank you. Who was next? Councillor Rathbone. Oh, sorry, Councillor Smith.
Rathbone first.
Yeah, Councillor Rathbone first.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of questions. One is about income. Do you kind of have any estimates or guesstimates of any kind of loss of income in businesses that have closed, or how are you seeing how businesses are faring, as it were? And then secondly, around $64,000 question, which is what if restrictions continue? Is there a kind of a plan B? I mean, I noticed you're talking about July to October. Have you got a plan B, as it were, to take account of extension of restrictions or even further a lockdown?
Yes. So for the purpose of year 4, just on the income forecast, we did only base this year's forecast on the income from supermarkets and takeaways off sales. In regards to the prediction of the businesses that have shut or businesses that will fail to be able to pay their levy because of the impact of the pandemic, it's quite hard to tell at the moment because there's still quite a lot of businesses that have chosen to remain closed voluntarily until June 21st. So it's until June 21st comes along, I think it's going to be very hard for us to, provide any sort of forecast in that respect.
Okay.
What about the second question? What if restrictions continue? I'm asking you, have you got a plan B?
Yes. In regards to if the restrictions continue, we will have to reevaluate. Obviously, expenditure will have to come way down to the point where we'll have to, adjust the budget. We still have a little bit left in the pot as well to kind of see us through, but we're quite optimistic about income.
Yeah, although restrictions might continue, it's to what extent they're continuing. So businesses are able to operate to a certain extent at the moment with restrictions. So I guess we just have to make a judgment about, who we write to and what we expect those businesses to pay in terms of the late night levy. And once we're able to assess the situation on the 21st of June and after.
Yeah, I think it's, we might see a change in the level of income we used to see if there's, an impact on trade. But I think by the time November comes along, we'll have a very much clearer view of what's to come in 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Can I just add one more point to that? So the late night levy, it's, I guess it's not really a case of any levy income being lost as such. It's more a case of it being deferred, really, because those licence holders are still legally required to pay the levy by virtue of the fact they held those licences. So at some point, we will have to go back and ask for those licence holders to pay the levy.
Yeah.
Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Chair. Just on the income here, it's not clear here. Hackney Knights portal best practice scheme printed design. What day, what period that's for? There's obviously been a reduction in spending due to COVID. And I'd just like you to explain away the administration salary cost of 76,000. Obviously there's retention there of staff. I get that. But that seems to be quite high compared to the rest of the stuff that's dropped. So just a bit of an explanation, please.
Sure. So I mean, in terms of administration and salaries, so that's for a whole year, and that actually covers all of last year's. Because at the end of the financial year, that's when all the deductions happens, and that happens to be in Q1. So that's why you see quite a high spend there. The Hackney Knights Portal best practice scheme print and design is actually, yes, I should have put a period there. It's over. It's from November to it would be end of March, the period.
Thank you.
Councillor Peters.
Hi. So we have had a discussion about the Hackney Knights accreditation scheme before.
Yeah.
But could you just remind us, for a business, what would they need to do to get accredited? So how many, say, hours would it take a business to get accredited? And what members of staff would they need? Presumably it's not everyone involved in it. So there's how to get accredited, but then how to stay accredited. Presumably there are ongoing requirements as well. And how does that relate to the stuff that you showed us about, like the live sessions about Bernardo's and?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, licensees, in order to become accredited, will have to complete a set of, milestones, if you will, in several categories. So some of those milestones you find, like, for instance, with the coronavirus, they have to produce a valid risk assessment. This is something that they would probably already have, but they need to send it in essentially for us to be able to consider them. Other things like, the crime prevention stuff, they need to have, proper anti-theft policies, which any reputable venue would have, anyway. And it's to help also new venues kind of, check off all the different things they need to have in place to be a good venue. And that includes, the impact on residents, that includes the noise pollution. We're also asking them to be more engaged with their local community. So be a member of the pub watch schemes, go to the meetings, participate in the discussions. which hopefully the portal will aid with, because they can see all the list of meetings and they can see everything virtually. So we also have, the whole sustainability. Our waste team has gotten involved, making sure they have green practices. These are all things we really want to push as part of the accreditation. And I don't think it will take them much hours or many staff members to complete, because they are mostly doing this work already. It's just a question of bundling it, tying up the loose ends, etc. There are mandatory criteria points and there are optional criteria points that we want to set up some sort of a bonus scheme where they can do additional measures to put them above and beyond. So I'm really convinced that it's not going to take much of the licensee time. And if I had to estimate, it could be maybe just a day's worth of work of a manager or supervisor, just putting the appropriate paperwork together and just ensuring they have the proper procedures in place.
We saw, I think previously, and you showed us there, training sessions and things that members of staff can sit. Are there requirements for, say you hire a new barman, they sit through a session on what to do to serve or not serve, for example?
Yes, so in the portal, they can actually add the individual team members, and we can see which team members have completed which courses. And we can also, it's also flagged to us when there are periods of inactivity, which would warrant us to do an engagement call or visit, etc. So for instance, if we've seen that a licensee has not been on the portal in the last month or 2 months, we, then that would trigger an action from our team to engage with them. And so it's definitely, we're trying to encourage them to do it, but we have because of the portal, we actually can see whether they are completing them or not.
So the having each of the members of staff undertake some core training on the portal, that's not part of the accreditation, but it's a...
Yes, it will be a part of, so there's an education category for it, so it is tied into so they would have to sign up to the new training sessions being offered. Now, we know it's not realistic to have, at all times, there will be a little bit of give there, but we will know by the activity levels on the portal, and if, how many new members of staff are trained in that month, to see whether they're really keeping up with their side of the bargain, essentially.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Just on the sustainability aspect of the accreditation, will there be anything on single-use plastics?
Yes, so one of the mandatory criteria points is that there's no single-use plastics anywhere in the venue.
Excellent.
As well as trying to source local suppliers, using healthy alternatives as well, lower no alcohol options, things like that. So a lot of,
Councillor Root.
I just wondered, is there any opportunity for councillors to sit in on any of this online training?
Absolutely.
I think, it would be quite interesting to see, particularly the live stuff, not least because we get to see how the licensees react to it as well, potentially, which would be interesting.
Yeah. Yes, I can certainly arrange that.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
I'd certainly like to be involved in that, yeah.
I see you made.
Excellent. Okay, we can definitely arrange that. I think one of them's coming up quite soon though, so we need to do that fast.
There's
lots.
Yeah, there'll always be sessions. So.
Okay. Any more questions, Susan?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Just to quickly come in, that police training, the e-learning on counter-terrorism, is that what they call it? And just as a suggestion, I'll prefer what we call it in the council, preventing radicalization, rather than that sounds so negative. Counter-terrorism.
Yeah, that's the name that appears in the actual, because it was designed by the Met Police, and I think the main title, the actual name of it is called the ACT Awareness e-learning.
Yes, that's...
Yeah. But unfortunately it comes up, it's an interactive training, so the whole thing is the Met Police's content, so it'd be hard for me to change that, but we can call it, we can call it something else perhaps for the purpose of the meetings or engagement with the licensees.
In terms of going to the next, in terms of CALM, just going on what Councillor snail race around other premises in the borough being able to use the night porter. Probably we need to do a separate comms around promoting that to other businesses in the borough. So maybe, and the last thing that I want to touch on in terms of another question Councillor Snell raised on reporting neighbors, supporting neighbors. I think probably what we need to do on the portal, or probably take this away, the only reporting we have out of hours or over the weekend in Hackney is the 2300 out of hours number. But from there, the operative are able to either make referral to safeguarding or any otherwise they have to call the police.
Yeah.
So not too sure if you want to find a way of incorporating that on it as well.
Yeah, that's certainly something we can look into doing.
Councillor Snell.
So just one supplementary question. Again, I'm going back to a meeting I think we were both at. Actually, it may not have been. So there's been an issue in the past. I know that you are funding from the late night levy, these wireless is to issue to businesses. I also understand that they're only funded for 6 months. And I know there's been past experience, as soon as they're not being funded, a lot of people say, actually, it's not worth it, we don't use it enough. That's less true, I think, of the nightclubs than it is of some of the other bars. But it would seem to me that in the long run, having a key network of people who took responsibility for, you know, so even if you didn't have a radio, you knew so-and-so had a radio down the street, might be a good way of keeping it going, because we've done this once before already, certainly around Gillett Square, and there's no point in doing something that just lasts for 6 months. We've got to find some way of making that radio contact, that radio network stay in place, and actually looking up people like, you know, the Dalston Square concierges who were using it and then forgot how to use it. That active management, so we've got key contacts in regular touch with the control room, will make so much difference. And if we're going to spend heavy money on it, I'd like to look at ways in which we can actually target it and keep it going. Again, if that gets minuted, I'm happy for you to come back at future meetings.
I will say that, so with the radio scheme specifically, so there's two costs actually. There's the cost of the handset itself is about £500. And then there's the network cost, which is a continual subscription of about £10 a month. So what we said as the council was that we would fund the actual handset itself. It would be property of Hackney Council, and we would give it to them to use indefinitely, as long as they are there, are on the premises. And the only part that we were actually asking them to pay after the 6 months trial was that small £10 a month network fee, just because it wouldn't be sustainable for us to continuously pay all the network fees for and keep track of every licensee in Hackney. So that was kind of the thinking behind it, the scheme. But yes, I agree that we should make them available to as many licensees.
I suspect the benefit to the control room is so large that if you task them with finding a way to create that network, they would hopefully come up with some idea. As you say, if it was only a small number of key people, that's tiny compared with our overall CTV budget. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's been quite successful and carrying on in Stoke Newington, hasn't it, in particular, for quite a long period of time now. People have adopted it in a big way. I think it's up to the licensees in Dalston to be encouraged to do so, but ultimately it is their choice. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you, Samantha. And we just asked to note the report and the appendices. We're happy to do that.
Noted.
Okay, then we'll go on.
Great pleasure.
With great pleasure, yes, indeed. Many thanks. Agenda item 5, the review of the Gambling Act, Statement of Principles, and the Statement of Gambling Policy for consultation. Can I ask David Tuitt to introduce it, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this is just to introduce the report, which is the cover report for the proposed review of the Gambling Statement of Principles. So the statement is a document which lasts for 3 years and essentially is what sets out council's principles when considering applications for certain types of licence and notice under the Gambling Act 2005. So essentially, what we're proposing is to keep the statement pretty much as it is at the moment. So you can see there that each local authority has to have a statement, and that statement sets out how we consider applications for adult gaming centres, betting premises, bingo premises, family entertainment premises, etc. I've included in this report a timetable for the review, so proposing to start to consult in June, the latter part of this month or next month, before coming back to the licensing committee in September with the outcome of the consultation. There's a slightly different process with gambling statements by which it's a dual approval by Cabinet and full council. So I'm hopeful that the Cabinet will approve the statement on the 13th of September, and then the full council on the 20th of October, before the policy comes into effect. The statement comes into effect later on in December, and then it becomes effective next January. So looking at the statement itself, as I say, it's very much as it is now. The only things I would really update and have been full text are some of the appendices at the end of the statement. So we would update some of the maps that are there before we go out to consultation. But essentially, it's a continuation of the same statement. So,
Okay.
if there's any
Have we got questions on the statement of gambling? Councillor Rathbone.
Yeah, just a couple of points, Chair. One is I just wanted to kind of confirm that I'm fully in support, and I know that the members are currently no casino.
I think are we doing that now, or are we coming on to that?
Are you doing that now?
We can do it now. Okay. Well, I'll mention that as well then, because they're done as a separate thing for us to agree to. But so you've raised that. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't want to go into any great details. I can remember about 10 years ago we had quite a discussion about it, and we decided then, and we've since decided on. But just to say that for various reasons that it's a good thing in this borough that we don't have any such casino. And then secondly, so what's the point? It's kind of like a bit of a minor point, I know, but I'm just a bit puzzled at item 4.2.5, which says where the premises has been associated with drug dealing and possession of weapons, this may give rise to particular concerns. It's surprising to me that there is even that applicants may be required. I would have thought it was a compulsion required to demonstrate that these matters have been addressed, rather than sort of some option, particularly if drugs or weapons have been found on the premises.
Seems fair enough.
So have you got that? Item 4.2.4.
It's something we could certainly look at.
I think it has to be a
major must.
Yes, it has to be a compulsion word, I'm afraid. Not may. There's no choice in that.
Yeah, I'm not certain I agree with that. The problem is, if the premises was in use by somebody else and the person owning them had taken all steps to keep reasonable control on them, I think it is dangerous in law to put a compulsion. We all understand and fully sympathise with what you're saying, Ian, but what worries me is there may be circumstances where the must is basically unfair to the applicant, and therefore I prefer to stay with May.
Ian, can you just tell us again which paragraph?
Right, so item,
Or-
paragraph 4.2.5. Of course, if you all have printed agendas, it could say on page 19.
4.2.5 is much quicker.
I'm happy to reply to that actually, but.
Sorry,
2.5.
sorry.
Page 19 of the agenda.
Yeah, page 19, you've got the printed one.
And you need to go further.
I think it's page 19 of the report actually. the
Yeah,
draft.
there we go, on the right. The middle on the right.
Well, working. True.
It's a particular thing because it's referring to children, so it's referring to particular types of premises, most of which we don't actually have in Hackney, I think. So I have a feeling it's been pulled out of somewhere else.
It's probably get away with must there, I think.
Yeah,
So we can.
yeah, I think must be fair
It
enough.
still doesn't preclude us giving them a licence, so sorry, yes.
No.
I've read it properly now, okay, fair enough.
But, I mean, in fact, there are relatively few premises that allow children anyway, so it isn't an issue. That, I mean, it's a kind of seaside gaming hall situation, isn't it, where there probably are many more situations where there have been instances of drug dealing and they might want to, you know, take a firm line. I don't think it's something that we're actually...
Hopefully never.
Hopefully never, indeed. Hopefully never.
Family entertainment centres.
Yeah.
That you can see at the seaside resorts or sometimes motorway service stations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Motorway services, you see family entertainment centres there, obviously.
Yeah, there's a few things we don't have, basically, thank goodness. But we have a policy that covers it just in case we suddenly did have, given that it's for 3 years. Councillor Snell.
I just wanted to ask David, I mean, I looked at this and I thought, well, I've seen one of these before and we've got to do it. But did you actually change anything, David? I didn't look at the last one from 4 years ago, but has anything actually changed, or is this pretty much exactly where we are at the moment?
Only the appendices.
Yeah, so the appendices have been updated. But a few years ago, we did do a bigger change when the Commission introduced the requirement for local area risk assessments for applicants to assess and licence holders to assess local risk. So those were the major changes. The Act itself, the Gambling Act 2005, is actually undergoing a review at the moment, but that's more to look at remote gambling, which is essentially online gambling and stuff like that. So there are a lot of concerns about that. But when it comes to non-remote, which is the type of licensing that we deal with, not a lot has changed at all. So the guidance has been, the guidance issued by the Gambling Commission has been updated slightly, but there's not a lot of changes to it. So short answer, Councillor, is I haven't changed very much at all. No.
Thank you.
Councillor Root.
I was just going to ask David, I don't know if you know the answer or not, but my impression is that we've lost quite a lot of bookies in the last while. Is that something that was borne out when you updated the map of where the
It will be. It certainly have. We certainly have seen a reduction in the number of betting shops. I think in the last 12 months or so, maybe 5 or 6. Once we present the annual report, we'll be able to look at those statistics more closely. But surprisingly, we actually had an increase in the number of bingo premises, which is a relatively new concept of the small format bingo, but not the traditional large. Years ago, we had a Mecca bingo on Hackney Road. So not a return to bingo premises of that size, but certainly smaller high street bingo. So we had one application. I think we've got another application at the moment, and maybe a couple of adult gaming centre applications. So I think in those cases, those particular applications have come in for those sites where there were previously betting shops as well. So the overall number of gambling premises may only have fallen slightly, but not as much because some of the betting shops, as you say, have been replaced with other types of gambling establishments.
I think online gambling is going up.
Yeah.
License.
In Victoria Park, the cookies has become an interior design showroom.
Councillor Smith.
And if I might just comment, it's quite frustrating. We don't often sit on applications for these gaming machine licenses, and you know, if they're coming with a decent barrister, we are so constrained in what we are allowed to do under national legislation that we're pretty much advised legally you've got no grounds to stop it. So there's not a lot, I think, we can write into a local policy. Am I right on that, David?
But the Act, local authorities should, and it's actually in the Act, aim to permit gambling. So,
can you say that bit again?
So within, specifically referred to and included in the legislation itself, local authorities or licensing authorities have a requirement to aim to permit gambling. Permit gambling. So therefore, turning down applications is actually quite difficult unless there are very, very specific circumstances.
That was kind of my question, about powers around licensing for that style of premises. I know we're restricted in banning as well. Is that correct? Is any of that legislation changed, or is it just the same?
For betting?
For betting shop, yeah.
I think from a planning point of view, I think they're still in their own planning use class.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, when betting shops were separated from other types of financial institutions, so banks. So,
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I think at that time we barely saw any applications after that. I think we might see one more application for Kingswood High Street.
Oh, so that did help then?
That did help, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also just generally, I think high street betting has just declined with the rise of an increasing popularity of online gambling and the restriction of the B2 gaming machines that were in betting shops up to a few years ago. That really changed a lot.
Thank you.
Just a small point on that, David. I don't know that we know that betting has decreased in popularity. What we do know is that it's less profitable for the companies that run the shops if they haven't got those machines, and that's.
Yes. What I should have said then, Chair, apologies. I think high street betting and retail betting may have increased, so over the counter betting. But
Yeah.
not to say gambling at all.
No, but there are communities who want to go on doing over-counter betting, but they're not profitable. The companies rely on having machines in the shop to make the money, and that's been an issue for a while. So some of the closures of betting shops have been because of that change in the machines that we campaigned for, joined campaigns for. But anyway. Any more points on this? And are we also, so I mean, if anybody has any more points they want to raise? No questions? No, thank you. Then in that case, we note the proposed approach, and are we continuing to recommend to council that we continue with the no casino resolution? We're happy with that?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Great. Okay. The final, thank you, David, very much for that. Final agenda item is dates of future meetings to be noted. I hope everybody's got those. And if there's any other business of the formal meeting, failing that, I shall close the licensing committee meeting for tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.